Well, good morning. Well, afternoon, depending on where you are. Welcome to VA Careers Live. My name is Mike Owens, and I'm a national recruiter with the Veterans Health Administration, as well as your host for our weekly segment, Talk About It Tuesday. If you are here for the first time, I want to let you know that we are here every Tuesday at 12 noon Eastern Time. So feel free to grab a drink, grab a snack, and join us as we talk about careers here at VA. Now, again, whether you've been here for the first time or you've you've been here for the first time or you've been here for the whole 3 years, we want to let you know we want you to be part of the conversation. So feel free to leave any questions in the comment section below. We'll love to answer those questions and address those comments throughout the day and throughout the week. Also, we want you to share our broadcast. So feel free to hit that share button. Use our hashtags work at VA and VA careers. Again, we have two hashtags that are associated with this program. That's hashtag work at VA and hashtag VA careers. Use those hashtags, share that broadcast, and let's get this word out to as many people as possible. So with that, we're going to go into our broadcast for today. So today we're going to talk about interviews, more specifically interview mistakes that a lot of people make throughout the interview process. And the reason I want to talk about that today because we've had a lot of big announcements closed. We had an HR star announcement closed that was open and it closed about a week and a half ago. And so there were a lot of candidates for that. So a lot of you who applied for that, you may get reached out for interviews in the upcoming future. There are some of you out there that have applied for other VA positions and your application has been referred to the hiring manager. And so you're waiting on their interview. So with that being said, I want to talk about interviews and, like I said, more specifically, some of the most common mistakes that people make during the interview process. So again, I can't list everything because again, if we list everything, then we'll be here all day, and I only have a certain amount of minutes to talk to you guys. So let's go through them. So one of the first, and again, this is no particular order, so I don't want you to feel like one mistake is more important than the other. This is just me just rattling down some mistakes, but they're no particular order. So don't feel that like one mistake is weighted more than the other or one is weighted less than the other. All right. So one of the main, and I know a lot of you are going to laugh, but one of the main interview mistakes is not verifying the time and place of the interview. Okay. Because here at VA, we have different types of job interviews. You may have to come to the VA facility and actually interview in person. The interview may be over the phone. The interview may be over a platform like Microsoft Teams. And also, let's say, like if you're applying for a virtual position or a national job, when the time that the interview is set up, they may have it set up in Eastern time, and you may be living in a Central time zone. So again, make sure you verify the platform, whether it's in person, over the phone, whether it's going to be a Teams interview. And even if it's a Teams interview, if it's going to be on camera, off camera, I would verify that. And also, if you are interviewing for a VA position that's on a national level, and the person setting up the interview may be living in a different or working in a different time zone, make sure that you verify the time zones. Because again, if the person that calls you for an interview say, hey, we have an interview at 12 noon, that could be 12 noon Eastern time, and really it's 11 Eastern in your time. Or if you live in California, it could be 9 Eastern. So, 9 Pacific. So just make sure that you verify the time, make sure it's the correct time zone. Again, especially if it's a national or virtual VA position. Also verify what type of platform. Make sure you verify if it's going to be an in-person interview or if it's going to be a phone interview or Teams interview, and just make sure you have all of those I's dotted and all those T's crossed, because again, we're moving into a very big virtual world, and I know there's still a lot of positions out there at the local VA facilities, and a lot of people are applying to those. But for those who are applying for virtual positions, just make sure that you verify the information, because I don't want you to miss an interview because you had the correct time, but just the wrong time zone. So again, that's one of the most common mistakes that I find when we're interviewing candidates here at VA. The next thing is not dressing the part. So again, make sure that you dress and I know there are many people can have many different ways. I know in the comment section you probably say there's many different ways to dress for an interview, but very professional dress. I would say, yeah, very professional dress for the most part. You know, if you're a gentleman, you want to have a tie. Again, I don't want to get into the specifics, but just make sure that you dress appropriately. Make sure you dress business casual. Make even if the interview is on Microsoft Teams, even if you're sitting in your living room interviewing on the phone or on the computer, make sure that you're dressed appropriately, because again, that matters. First impressions matter, and the first thing that someone sees or an interviewer sees when they're interviewing someone or candidate, they see what the candidate is wearing. So make sure that you're dressed appropriately. Make sure, even if you're dressed appropriately, make sure that your clothes aren't wrinkled, they're not messy. But just make sure you do that, because you won't believe how many good candidates missed out on the job because they were not dressed appropriately. So just make sure that you dress for the part, dress for the interview, and make sure that you're just very business casual and professionally for the interview. All right. So another thing that I want to talk about when it comes to interviews is that if you're doing an interview, don't use your phone. All right. Don't use your phone. I know that these days where most of us are tethered to our phones, they're either in our pockets or they're always near us. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, because things happen, emergencies happen, so you want to make sure that you're around if someone needs to contact you. But there are certain instances where you just have to kind of put your phone to the side and not even touch it. I know, uh, for like even for a broadcast like this, I know that I'm gonna be talking to you guys, so I want to give you my full attention. So any phone that I may have is on silent right now. It's in the other room, or it's somewhere where I won't be able to touch it or get distracted by it. So you want to do the same thing for an interview. If you are interviewing for if you're interviewing for a job here at VA, even if it's over the phone interview, well, obviously you have your phone, but some of us have multiple phones. So but if you're interviewing for a job, kind of just sit your phone away. Don't worry about a text message. I know some of us wear Apple watches, so we get the text message through our watches. I would even say go as far as not wearing your Apple Watch or your smartwatch when you're interviewing for a position, because again, it's get distracted. Especially if someone's trying to call you and they're calling you over and over and over, or you're getting a bunch of text messages, your watch is buzzing, your phone is buzzing in your pocket. So I would say just get a regular watch or don't wear a watch at all, but try to avoid wearing a smartwatch when you are interviewing for a position, because you don't want to get distracted. You don't want the interview panel to see that you're distracted. And then again, you don't want to give off the feel that you're not willing to detach yourself from your phone just for a few minutes for something that may be important and something that may uh, for event that may transform your life. Because if you get that perfect job here at the VA, that can transform your life. But if you're not willing to detach yourself from your phone or from your smart devices for those few minutes that you're interviewing, where you're showing your interview panel that you may not be the good candidate for that position. So again, throughout interviews, one of the most common mistakes is not detaching yourself from your smart devices. Please do that. All right. Here's another one. And I know you guys are gonna laugh at me because you're gonna be like, "Well, I put it together." But one of the most common interview mistakes is candidates not knowing what's on their resume. All right. Please, before you interview for a position here at VA, please read over your resume. All right. Read over it every time you have to interview. I know some of you might be saying, "Well, Mike, guess what? I haven't had to update my resume in a while, so it's the same information." But guess what? You want to make sure that you are very familiar with everything that's on your resume, because sometimes we may write a resume and we haven't updated in a year, so we kind of forget some of the things that are on it. So you may get asked about your interview. You may get asked about your resume in the interview, but guess what? If you haven't looked over your resume in a while, you may have a deer in the headlights look, and then what that causes, it causes your interview panel to be like, "Well, hey, is this stuff accurate on this person's resume, or was this person lying about any job experience or any experience that they placed on their resume?" And that may not necessarily be the case, but just the fact that you haven't looked at your resume in a while, you may have forgotten some things that were on there, and then it'll take a while for you to kind of think about it and speak on it. So anything that you're asked about your resume, you want to be able to speak on it right then and there. I know sometimes the questions that we may be asked, especially the PBI questions, the performance-based interview questions, we may need a second to kind of gather our answer, and that's okay. But when it comes to your resume, your work experience, you need to be able to answer that question right off the cuff. And if you don't go over your resume, if you don't remember what's on your resume, guess what? You may have to kind of take some time to think, and then that hesitation may cause the interview panel to think that you may have put some stuff on your resume that's not true, or that may not be accurate. So please read over your resume before every interview, just to make sure that you are familiar with everything in it. So again, I know you're probably thinking, well, Mike, I write my resume, but guess what? Sometimes just because we write something doesn't mean we can remember everything. So again, just like you will go over and prepare for your answers or your performance-based answers or whatever you do to prepare for an interview, just make sure reading over your resume and understanding your own resume is part of that process in preparing for interview. The next thing is not researching the VA. So another most common interview mistake that people make interviewing at the VA is not knowing anything about the VA. All right. You want to make sure that you know the main mission of the VA. You know, the main mission of the VA is the health and welfare and making sure that we take care of our nation heroes who are veterans. And you want to learn about the VA. You want to learn about the 3 different pillars of the VA. You want to make sure that you know about the Veterans Health Administration. You want to make sure that you know about the Veterans Benefits Administration. You want to make sure you know about the National Cemetery Association. Those are administration. Those are the 3 pillars under VA. Even though you may be applying for the Veterans Health Administration, you may get a question about, tell me a little bit about what you know about the VA. And if you can't spout out the 3 pillars, then guess what? That will make the interview panel think that you don't understand or you haven't researched what the VA is about. So make sure you research a lot about the VA. Make sure you know a lot about the VA. Make sure you're able to answer questions that may be asked to you about the VA. Because again, if you want to work here at VA, we want candidates that care about the mission. We want candidates that care about taking care of our nation's heroes, which are our veterans. And if you can't convey that message in an interview, then the interview panel is not going to look at you as the best candidate for that position. All right. Another most common interview mistake that people make is being too modest. All right. So there has to be a fine line here, because you don't want to feel like you're bragging too much on yourself, but you also don't want to feel like you're downplaying your experiences. All right. So you have to find that middle ground that kind of helps you to basically articulate your skills. But you want to be confident in that. All right. Confident doesn't mean that you're being aggressive. Being confident doesn't mean that you're bragging on yourself. But this is the one moment that you have. This 30-minute interview that you have, this interview panel, is the one time that you may have to convince this group of people that you are the perfect candidate for this position. So you have to use those 30 minutes wisely when you're talking about yourself and your experience. And if you are an expert, or you're very good at something that they're asking you about in that question, you need to make sure that you convey to that interview panel that you are an expert and you're very good at those requirements that they're asking you about. Don't be too modest. Don't try to downplay your experience, because I know of a couple of people that have not been picked for a position because they downplay their experiences in an interview when they were actually perfect for the job. But you have to market yourself to the interview panel. It's not up to the interview panel to have to figure out if you're the perfect candidate. They're going to do that by the information that you present in an interview. So please do not be too modest. Don't be arrogant. Don't be too abrasive. But at the same time, don't be too meek and modest that you miss out on an interview, that you miss out on being selected for a position because you wanted to downplay yourself. All right. So another most common mistake, and I can tell you because I've done this before, is that when the interview panel asks us a question, we're long-winded. I'm very long-winded when it comes to questions being asked. But sometimes we get so long-winded that we forget to answer the actual question that was asked of us. We go in this big old circle talking about a lot of different experiences that may be related to that question. But guess what? We've never answered the actual question. So no matter how short-winded you are or how long-winded you are, if you're asked a question, make sure you answer the question. All right. Make sure you answer the question um, when it's asked of you. Understand? Again, I've done it before. I was asked a question on the interview, and I went on this big 2-minute tangent about things surrounding or maybe related to the question. But guess what? I never answered the question, and the interview panel said, "Well, we enjoyed your answer, but you didn't answer the question." So I had to go back and answer the question. So please be sure to listen to the question. Be sure that your answer, even no matter how long or short it is, make sure whatever you're saying actually answers the question that's being asked of you. All right. Um, Another thing I want to talk about too is another common interview mistake is that don't lose your focus in the interview. I know, and I'll talk about myself. One thing I like about coming on these lives is that I'm able to talk to you and I'm able to tell my flaws. I know as I talked about earlier, a lot of us are tethered to our phones. We're tethered to our emails, we're tethered to social media, and we're tethered to small bursts of just small bursts of information. Like we get maybe 10 to 20 seconds of information and we're on to the next. So we're used to those short bursts of information. So when it comes to an interview, a 30-minute interview, if we're so used to 10 to 20-second bursts of information, when we're sitting in a 30-minute interview, 30 minutes is a lot longer than 10 to 20 seconds. And so you may find yourself zoning out, or you may find yourself getting bored because you're doing something that you're not used to. You're not used to that long, drawn out type of information. You're used to getting your information in 10 to 20-second sound bites. And again, I'm talking about myself. I'm not out here accusing anyone of that. But if you're like me and you're used to those 10 to 20-second, maybe 30-second bursts of information, make sure you really focus in your interview, because if your mind's not used to long drawn out information, you may find yourself zoning out in your interview. And that's the one thing you don't want to do. You don't want to zone out, because even when you're talking in a regular conversation, the person that you're talking to can tell when you're not listening or when you're zoning out. And the last thing you want to have to do is have your interview panel. And there's nothing wrong with asking your interview panel to repeat a question. But it's one thing to ask them to repeat a question when you don't understand a question or you need clarification on something, versus asking them to repeat a question because you totally zoned out and you didn't hear a word they were saying for the last 45 seconds. So again, don't lose your focus. Make sure you focus, because again, our attention spans, they change every 10 to 20 seconds. So, but when you're sitting in a 30-minute interview, you have to be focused. You have to make sure that you're attentive for that long period of time. And sometimes we may not be used to that. So again, don't lose your focus when you're interviewing. Okay. All right. So, and the last thing I just want to say is be confident and think about your body language, especially if your interview panel can see you while you're interviewing. Now, I know it's a different thing if you're over the phone, but whether you're in person or you're on Microsoft Teams or you're on Zoom, just realize that your body language can say a lot about you. Even though you may spell out the perfect answers, even though you may say what the interview panel wants you to say, but your body language can also tell a different story. Because not only do hiring managers here at VA want the perfect candidate that has the knowledge of the vacancy, they want to know if that person is also a good team player. They want to know that person can come in and be an integral part of a team, because when you're working at VA, you're never in a position where you're working by yourself. You're always part of a team. And if your body language conveys that you are not a team player, then you may miss out being selected for that vacancy simply by the fact that you had bad or negative body language. All right. So, yeah. So that's what I wanted to talk about today. And again, there's a lot of different mistakes that people make in interviews, and it's mistakes that you don't even realize you're making. And again, I can't go over everything because again, we'll take a lot of time, and I don't have that much time with you guys. I wish I could sit here and talk to you guys for hours at a time, but you know, you guys have other things to do, and I'm not afforded that much time because I have other things I have to do throughout the day. So again, if you missed this, if you missed a lot of this broadcast today, we were talking about some of the most common interview mistakes that I've seen that candidates made when interviewing here at VA. So if you missed part of that, just feel free to come back to the broadcast at a later time, later date, and you can watch it in its entirety. So with that, that's all I have for you today. Obviously, if it's Tuesday, we're definitely going to talk about careers here at VA. I appreciate everyone for tuning in week out and week in, and have a great day, and we will see you on next Tuesday.